I'm Adrian, and today we're taking an in-depth look at Black Canary's fighting style in CW's Arrow. Sara Lance, or the Canary, is one of the most skilled fighters on CW's Arrow. To clarify, although in the show she's technically called the Canary or Canary, in the promotional materials and advertisements she's referred to as Black Canary, and she's definitely meant to represent the character from the comic books, so I'll be using these terms interchangeably for the duration of this video. There are also some spoilers from the show in order to explain where some of her knowledge came from. This analysis will focus exclusively on the martial arts scene in her portrayal of Black Canary, not White Canary, from Legends of Tomorrow. However, I do delve a bit into the crossover episode in which she briefly returns to Arrow to illustrate a particular martial art. Since it's technically on Arrow, and she isn't dressed as a White Canary, and it's even meant to represent a hypothetical point in time in the Arrow timeline, I think it fits well within the established parameters. And if you're a fan of CW's Arrow and other superheroes, be sure to subscribe to my channel as there's plenty more of that content on the way. Without further ado, let's take a look at how many fighting styles Black Canary knows in CW's Arrow. Although Black Canary and Green Arrow do have knowledge of several martial arts, what makes Black Canary a different kind of fighter than Arrow is that Canary was actually fully trained by the League of Assassins. She didn't just spend some time there like Oliver did, she was a full-fledged assassin. Or to put it bluntly, she was a ninja, plain and simple. And when you bring up a ninja's fighting style, that means that you will be discussing their primary martial art, ninjutsu. As I've explained before in my other fighting style videos, ninjutsu is actually an umbrella term martial art, meaning that it comprises a host of different styles. According to Bujinkan members, the 18 disciplines that comprise ninjutsu were first stated in the scrolls of Tagakureyu and became definitive for all ninjutsu schools. And those 18 skills actually form their very own set of umbrellas. The list of skills ranges from physical ones, such as being able to use a sword, to those in the mind, such as Boryaku, which means being able to use unorthodox strategies and tactics. But for purposes of this video, we'll focus on the physical ones as we are counting fighting styles. We'll begin with Bojutsu. Bojutsu is a martial art of using a staff weapon. It involves slashing, swinging, and stabbing with the staff. As you've undoubtedly noticed if you're a fan of Black Canary, she's very fond of using this weapon. She is excellent at beating enemies relentlessly with the bow staff and is more than capable of taking out multiple opponents. Being skilled with this weapon is also covered in other martial arts like Wing Chun, but we'll get to that later. Continuing on with her experience with ninjutsu, she's inevitably skilled in taijutsu, a Japanese blanket term for unarmed combat. It literally means body technique or body skill. Naruto fans may even recognize the term, although it is heavily mysticized in that show. Considering Canary employs several punches, kicks, and throws, it's a no-brainer that she is skilled in this area. Shuriken Jutsu is the art of throwing blades and other small weapons, such as the legendary throwing stars or shurikens. In Canary's case, she's extremely skilled in throwing one of her batons, as she uses it as a projectile weapon to injure or kill her enemies from afar. We also have Inton Jutsu, which refers to the art of escaping and concealment. In other words, this is a disappearing technique that ninjas are famous for. That one moment they're there, and in the next, they're gone. Black Canary very frequently drops out of nowhere into her battles and can vanish in a blink of an eye just as easily. One of the assassins from the League even manages to disappear from Oliver, and considering she received the very same training, she is more than able to use these techniques. As a matter of fact, one of the ways in which she manages to disappear or even turn the odds into her favor goes into the next area of ninjutsu, and this is known as Kaiyaku Jutsu. Kaiyaku Jutsu means the use of gunpowder in a pyrotechnical way in order to secure your safe exit. For example, Batman is a big fan of using his famous smoke bombs, just like every ninja you've seen. In Black Canary's case, I still gave her this art, despite her lack of smoke bombs, just because she's using the same concept of escaping through the use of an item. But in her case, she uses a small gadget that emits a piercing high-frequency sound, capable of shattering glass and even freezing people in their footsteps due to the extreme pain it causes. And it turns out it also doubles as a distracting pyrotechnical device, as she uses it to escape from Oliver after she reveals her secret identity. So in conclusion, instead of saying she knows ninjutsu, she knows these 4 distinct fighting styles that are part of ninjutsu. Moving on, let's take a look at these 2 batons. Kali is a Filipino martial art that emphasizes weapon-based fighting with sticks, blades, and various other weapons. In the case of Black Canary, at various points in the show, you could see her using these small weapons on several enemies. Each small baton is known as a baston in Kali. They're useful for extending your reach in order to better strike your opponent and are great for blocking. Another weapon she's more than capable of using in combat is Arrow's namesake, the bow and arrow. During one of their battles, Oliver ends up using her bow staff, and she quickly picks up his bow and dispatches an enemy with complete ease from a considerable distance. At another point in the show, she even threatens Roy with the bow. So in other words, she may not use the bow and arrow as often as so many other characters on the show, but she knows how to use the bow and arrow in combat. As such, she will be given the fighting style of archery. And yes, I'm well aware that nowadays archery is much more closely associated to the Olympic event, but it can readily be used in combat and used to frequently be employed in war. Now that we've gone through the weapons that Black Canary enjoys using, we're going to explore the unarmed combat side of her, as she's demonstrated great knowledge of several techniques during the course of the show. Let's begin with Muay Thai. Muay Thai is a martial art which favors brutal close quarters techniques. Elbows and knees are absolutely critical to Muay Thai, and they are part of what is known as the art of 8 limbs, since you also use them in your fighting arsenal besides your traditional punches and kicks. Elbows and knees are best suited for close quarters attacks, as you don't need to extend your whole arm or leg. Black Canary is seen using techniques from Muay Thai such as this reverse elbow strike right here, and more significantly, employs a couple of knee strikes, including using one on this man's back, launching this knee strike, and also using this spectacular flying knee against Huntress. The flying knee is a particularly devastating technique, as it uses your momentum from running and jumping. However, Black Canary sometimes has more space to execute her moves, and this is where she relies on punching and kicking techniques from both Taekwondo and Karate. She uses a couple of Taekwondo's more well-known techniques, such as the spinning hook kick, the push kick, and the spinning side kick. Each one of these kicks does take a little more time and room to execute than a common knee strike, but what you sacrifice in speed, you gain in power. As a matter of fact, that spin hook kick is more than capable of knocking someone out. She also uses a very effective sweep kick, where you drop your body to the ground to swing your leg out in order to trip your opponent. She also frequently kicks low, something that is usually seen in Muay Thai. Although you do sacrifice some power, kicking low does have a few advantages. For one, it's much harder for your opponent to read an incoming low kick than a medium or high one, and they are also great for hurting your opponent's legs. Continuing this Muay Thai influence, she also executes a roundhouse kick where she follows all the way through. In other words, instead of launching a roundhouse and then stopping the kick when she hits the paddle or target, she follows through the kick. However, to clarify, following through your roundhouse kick instead of stopping at the target is also seen in Taekwondo, not just Muay Thai. Staying on the Season 5 fight, we can also see an influence of Taekwondo and Karate style punching. In these martial arts, the philosophy of punching is different from boxing. Sure, you're taught to extend your arm with as much force as possible, just like in boxing, but the difference is that instead of leaving your other hand by your face, you flip your wrist and chamber it, and get ready to deliver the next punch. Think of it as a push-pull mechanism, where both of your arms are constantly working in tandem, where if one is pushing forward, the other is pulling back. Now that you've seen that style of punching, notice how Sara launches her left hook, but immediately pulls back her right arm, chambering it for the next punch. However, Canary is also skilled in boxing style punching. In boxing, you're taught that your punches function independently from one another. In other words, if you're launching your jab, cross, hook, or uppercut, your other arm stays perfectly immobile, resting right beside your cheek. It's left there not only so you can be protecting your face while you punch, but also to be at a ready position to be able to launch follow-up punches. Typically, boxers lead with quick jabs to measure their opponent and then deliver their devastating uppercuts or crosses. Now take note of Canary's stance right here. Notice how both her hands are squared up? This is exactly the fighting stance that a boxer adopts. Furthermore, during her battle with Huntress, she first bobs out of the way to avoid her attack and follows up with a right hook. Bobbing and weaving out of attacks are a cornerstone of boxing. Wing Chun is also a fighting style that Black Canary has ample experience with. During a moment in the show, she even recommends that Felicity train in Wing Chun and proceeds to give her a small demo of her skills with this wooden dummy we've seen several times before on Fight Scene Breakdown. It's called a Mukianjong, and every single stick simulates a human strike. She also uses it to train at another point in the show. And now we go into trapping. I will clarify here that although I usually group trapping with Wing Chun, in this particular instance I'm going to group it with Bruce Lee's martial art Jeet Kune Do. I'm not only doing this because Jeet Kune Do is heavily influenced by Wing Chun, but because in the Season 5 crossover episode, Arrow specifically tells Sara that she knows Jeet Kune Do. And since trapping is an element in both Wing Chun and Jeet Kune Do, we'll go ahead and group it with Jeet Kune Do. Returning to trapping, notice how Sara curls her fingers around the blocked hit and holds it as she continues her attack? That act of momentarily immobilizing an opponent's limbs to give you a brief opportunity to strike while he cannot is called trapping. She also uses this concept during the initial part of her fight with Huntress. One martial art that was cool to see her show elements of was Sambo. It's basically the Russian version of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, known as Sambo in English-speaking countries, but as Sambo in Russia. Sambo is a modern martial art that was intended to be a merger of the most effective techniques from other martial arts. There are even sub-styles including sport, combat, and freestyle Sambo, but they do share a strong emphasis in grappling techniques, including throwing, groundwork, and submissions. What's unique about their throws is that there is quite a bit of theatricality in plenty of their techniques, involving throwing your whole body up in the air, much in the same way that Black Canary does in her fight with Huntress. Furthermore, she demonstrates that she knows perfectly well how to execute a good takedown as well as a roll, essential skills in ground fighting. She also demonstrates elements of Krav Maga and parkour. One could see the Krav Maga influence during this disarm right here. Notice how the moves weren't complicated at all and very efficient? Krav Maga prides itself on being extremely useful for intuitive and quick disarms, and this is perfectly reflected in the disarm scene here. Relating to parkour, she very frequently parkours her way out of situations, and even to just move around. And fun fact, the actress who plays Black Canary, Katie Lotz, has experience in Taekwondo, Krav Maga, Kali, Muay Thai, and parkour, so it makes complete sense to give her fight choreography featuring these different styles within the show. So in conclusion, how many fighting styles does Black Canary know in CW's Arrow? They are Bojutsu, Taijutsu, Intonjutsu, Kali, Archery, Muay Thai, Shuriken Jutsu, Kyaku Jutsu, Taekwondo, Karate, Boxing, Wing Chun, Jeet Kune Do, Sombo, Krav Maga, and parkour, which brings us to the grand total of 16 fighting styles. What other characters would you like to see me break down in terms of their fighting styles? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe, and you can follow me on my Twitter, Instagram, and brand new Facebook fan page, Godzillarex, to be notified when another new episode premieres. It would also be great if you could join my Patreon to get access to cool behind the scenes stuff and a bunch of other rewards. See you next time.